Welcome to Crete Carrier's Financial Education Series. Crete Carrier and Schaefer Trucking's podcast series that will help you manage and keep more of the hard-earned money you haul in. Today we listen in on a lunch and learn session held at Crete Carrier by Caitlin Moore, a retirement planning services educator with Union Bank and Trust based in Lincoln, Nebraska.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you for spending your lunch today learning about budgeting. This is my Crete Carrier debut. I'm Caitlin Moore. I'm your 401k educator. You're used to Jeff Aldridge being here periodically. He just moved departments, so I've taken over. His contact information is mine. So if you happen to have it, it is mine. I stole his phone number. So feel free to give me a call. Today and for the rest of the year, we're going to be doing a lot more education, not necessarily around 401k, but there is a 401k point to it. So it's a little bit more about just financial education in various ways, whether it's here live, podcasts, Zoom meetings, things like that. So we're trying to mix it up, but if there's anything that you would have a suggestion for, let me know. But again, I'm Caitlin Moore. I'm the retirement educator for you here at Crete. I have been with UBT for almost 5 years now, was in this role, then moved on to their financial literacy department. So it was my job to actually write their curriculum on financial literacy. So this is really my cup of tea here. I love just talking about basics because I think there was a lack of education over the years towards basic financial anything. And us banking people, we speak another language. So if you don't know, you don't know. So it's my job here to hopefully educate you a little bit further. But today we're going to be talking about budgeting. I think most people have an idea about what budgeting is, how to budget, but I have a couple things in here that really apply to industry itself, which is proactive budgeting, looking ahead at different expenses that you may have down the line and budgeting around that. So if you've heard about the budgeting topic, this may be a little bit different twist on it. I'm also a financial coach, so this is really something I love to do, is helping people kind of bring their finances to even with a strong budget and things like that. So that's where we're going to start, is just talking about what a budget is. Now, I'm not going to read this except for the first sentence, but it says a budget is a financial plan for a specific period of time. That's it. That's what a budget is. We're making a plan for a period of time. Typically, people work in month increments because that's when all of our bills are due. But some people get paid on a weekly basis or bi-weekly, and they want to budget according to that. But bill-wise, that's what we're going to be talking about, is more on the monthly basis, just because we're going to talk about bills. But if you have to narrow things down to a weekly basis, that's okay too. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Let's start with why it's important to budget. These facts are a couple years old, but they completely apply to 2023, probably even more. I wrote this curriculum in 2020 when COVID first hit. So a lot of our statistics financially are only starting to come out since the pandemic. So I expect things to be a little bit more of an issue. But nearly 2 out of 3 Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So we get paid on a Friday. By the time we get paid next, it's gone. Or you get paid on a Friday and on Saturday it's gone. That's a very typical situation here in America because we're using what we have for the moment. 40% of Americans, and I've heard this more as a 60%, so between 40 and 60% of Americans could not cover a $400 emergency today without going into debt. So if I left here and got in my car and got out on O Street and a tire blew and I had to replace 2 tires, it's going to probably be around $400. At least half of Americans could not do that without borrowing money or using a credit card. So when we think of emergency money, it's typically around $400. That's kind of the average in the US. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, of kind of where your thought might be in saving for emergencies. The APA has reported that money remains a stressor for at least 72% of Americans. That's the number one stressor. I used to do education like this for a lot of doctors' offices, PTs, OTs, and it was really interesting as I would present on this. They would agree with this, that people come in with ailments all the time and they don't know what it is. You know, my knee hurts, my elbow hurts. They can't find a reason for it. And actually it's just stress, and it was usually money that was at the root of it. So I've had a lot of doctors' offices actually tell me that is in fact that our bodies project our stress in different ways. And sometimes it's, a hurt ligament or it's something else. But that's a very true thing, that a lot of our stress, though we may say, family's a stressor or this is a stressor, if you really looked at the root of it, money might actually be the stress of it. I have a 5-year-old at home, and I will tell you, for me, it's money. Money is the stressor with my 5-year-old. So that's always the issue here. Not saying that it can't be something different, but it is something to think about if you have just a common occurrence of a stress. The root may be money implied at the heart of it. So let's talk about how to budget. And I've made this as easy as possible, though everyone has their little rendition of it. But financial gurus across the board would look at this chart and say, yes, this is typically how we would suggest budgeting, percent-wise. But not everybody has everything that would apply here, but this is a general rule of thumb. UBT uses this. I'm going to point out a few things on here. Housing says 20 to 28% of your income should go towards housing. Now, when you're getting a mortgage loan, they're going to actually use that formula to see how much you qualify. There's a lot of other numbers that go into it, but they usually keep it between 25 and 30% of your income is what they're going to qualify you to purchase a home. So this is right on target. Transportation, same thing. If you're getting a car loan, banks will typically look at this formula and keep it under 20% of your income, because if you are spending more than these formulas, they're afraid that there's a lot more liability and you not being able to pay it back. So they typically across the board will keep these numbers in mind. Now there's things on here like debts. Not everybody has debt. Not everybody has medical or health debt. If you have health insurance, typically we can find our way out of a whole lot of debt. But this is a good indication of your overall budget, how to separate our expenses. Now, if you're one of those that's never had a budget, this will not apply right away. It is hard to get to this point with any budget. On average, it takes 3 months to build a successful budget, because the first time you're making it, it's going to be a mess. The second month, you're kind of adding things that you forgot or kind of redoing it a little bit. And then the third month, you're trying to make it work. So I'd like to tell people, when you're building a budget, especially for the first time, if you're failing, you're actually doing it right, because you're adjusting things. You're remembering, oh, I have this, I forgot about this. So that is okay. So to get to this point, a successful budget, as financial gurus would put it, it's very hard and it takes a long time to get to this point. But I like to kind of show the overall kind of weighted averages of where we should be spending our money. So here's our quick how-to guide for budgeting. Step 1, write down all of your income. It's super important to take into account where your income is coming from. Some people have one paycheck, that's it. Some people have various things: child support, alimony, SSI, Social Security coming in. There's various ways that we have an income, and it's important to account for all of those on different lines. It's not a lump sum. It's where am I making my money, and where is it coming from and how much? Because if those change, it's a lot easier to go in there, take it away, adapt to it, whatever that looks like. So having a list of where we're getting our income is super important. And then step 2 is write down all of your expenses. Now I'll show you kind of the suggestion that I have to do that I give all of my clients to work with. But writing down all of your expenses, I always suggest go back a month, open up your bank statement, and account for every single dollar that you have spent. Where is it going? Lump it into categories, whatever you need to do. But every cent needs to be accounted for. I wouldn't suggest doing December as our last month, because that's a chaotic month, but a typical month for you. What does it look like when you're spending money? Because there's little things that pop up that we forget about when we're actually writing down our expenses that we need to see. We need to see it in our bank statement. For me, my hobby is coffee. That's what I do for a hobby, as I drink coffee. But I forget about how much I'm doing that. So if I was making my budget, accounting for all my coffee runs, I would need to actually look at my bank statement to write it down. So that's one of those areas that people think, oh, $5 here, $4 here, not a big deal. Yes, it accumulates. At the end of the month, we may have spent a massive amount on coffee, and we need to account for that. So go back to a whole month, write down all of your expenses. I have a little cheat sheet for that, which I'll show you. The next step is, did you consider everything? This is where people get caught up first, second, third month, is did we consider everything? For me, the month of December, yeah, we have Christmas, things like that. I'm a proactive budgeter, which we'll get to that. But I also have to pay my car registration in December. Worst month to pay your car registration. But we always forget about that one. I think most people put that out of their mind for car registration or car insurance if you're paying it on a 6-month basis. I always forget about it. It's January again. What a great month to pay a lump sum, January and July. So again, you're making adjustments as you think about things. So did we consider everything? If you have kiddos, there is magic expenses that come up every year. You know, August is all of our school supplies and sports at the beginning of summer or on a quarterly basis, things like that. So are we applying all these things to our budget? And then we're going to compare our income to our expenses. Are we making enough? If we're flatlining, if we're coming out even, that's a really great place to be. And actually, most Americans are not like that. And they say if you have, $20 in your pocket and no debt, you're one of the 1% of the world for the richest people in the world. Because most people have debt and most people don't have extra money. So that's what we're trying to find out. Are you spending too much? Are you not spending all of your paycheck, or are you just coming out even? If you are spending too much, that's where my clients come to me and I go, where are you getting this money? You know, you make this and you're spending this. Where's the deficit here? It's usually credit cards or an income they didn't think about, or they're doing Uber Eats, something quick that they can do on the weekends. But we have to consider all that and then figure out what happened to our budget that we're spending too much, or if we're spending less than what we're making, where's the extra money going? So there's questions to be asked there. This, if you could see, it's really small, but I actually have these in worksheets. This is what I have my clients when I'm coaching them do. This is the income worksheet. Some ideas of where our money comes from. So job, if you have more than one job, child support, alimony, SSI, bonuses. So if you get periodic bonuses, that's a hard one to budget with. I believe we go into it this time. But just to keep track of where it's coming from and how often you're getting it. Then you're going to have a magic number, but if that changes, if your income changes, you can go in there and mark it down real easy. And there's definitely apps that make this easier. This is my expense worksheet. You definitely can't see this very well, but I have put everything that we spend money on a usual basis in different categories, like debt, home, so we're rent or mortgage, our insurance, HOA fees, repairs. We got utilities, all of those that we'd be paying, transportation, which could include a bus pass. Maybe it's other. I've had clients that ride bikes for their main course of transportation. We want to budget for that if you need to replace a bike or a tire. Clothing, we've got pets on here. We have to think about our pets. If you're struggling with your finances, getting a new pet is not a great idea right away, but we do have to count for the ones that we have with their medical, vaccines, food, things like that. I've got entertainment on here. The top of the right-hand column there is food. This is very, very key right here, food. There is groceries and there's eating out, and those two are very different things. If we have a very limited budget, groceries are our survival. We're going to go to the store, we're going to cook, we have to eat. But eating out is not part of the survival plan. So we have to see those differently. So I'll do a Target run, Target Walmart run, and that's in my budget, but also eating out is in a different one. When I'm working with clients, the second most expensive thing on most budgets is eating out. And the first one is mortgage or rent. So people are spending, and sometimes it's more than their mortgage or rent. I worked with a single dad who had his kids 50% of the time. His mortgage was $1,000 and his eating out was $1,100. Single guy with 2 teenage girls that barely ate anyway. So significant amount of money being put into fast food, but his grocery budget was $150. So very, he couldn't afford $1,250 towards food. That was just too much money. But this is what that whole looking back on your bank statement, I call it my reality-based budget. What am I spending my money on? We're going to write it down, and then we're going to make adjustments. We have to know what we're spending as a reality in order to cut back where we need to cut back. There's 3 places you can end up. Zeroing out your income equals your expenses. That's a good place to be. Positive, if you're making more than your expenses, that's a great place to be. And then negative, you have more expenses than income. And then it's, where's the extra money coming from, or what are we going to do about it? Do we have to get a second job? Do we have to approach our supervisor about a raise? What are we doing? Do we need to cut back on eating out? That's usually the one that everybody has to do. And I am not here to tell you don't eat out. I'm just saying make it work. For me, I actually have an extra line item in my budget for coffee, because I know that's a reality for me, but I don't have hobbies. So that's my hobby category right there, is coffee. But I want to know that I'm not dipping into other places in order to afford my hobby, which is not an everyday hobby. But if I'm going to do it, go big or go home, right? So that's the gist of making a budget, just writing down where you're at, what you're actually doing, and then can I do this? Can I continue this lifestyle the way that it's going? Now, to add on another layer of this is inconsistent income. This is when, I like to use servers as an example for this. Servers get, a very low base rate. They know they're going to work 25 hours this week, but tips is where they're making their money. But they never know. They never know if they're going to make $20 out the door or $200 out the door. So inconsistent budget is like that. And I imagine in this industry, there's a lot of inconsistencies with the budget. It's hard to know what I'm going to make every single week or on a monthly basis. So how do we work with a budget like that? And this is where teaching your teenagers, this is a really good time to start teaching them, because most teenagers, maybe they're not servers yet, but they're working 8 hours, 15 hours, 30 hours. It just kind of depends on the week. So they really never know how much they're going to bring in. So what we're going to do is we're still going to take inventory of where we've spent our money last month, but our income, we're going to go for the lowest amount that we could possibly earn. So for a server example, they know they're going to have 20 hours a week. Just they know it, and they also know what their base rate is. So that's where they're going to budget, is 20 hours a week at base rate. Tips, maybe they know I always walk away with 20 bucks, $40, whatever that is. They can add that in there, but it's the lowest amount that you know will absolutely come in. So for people working various hours, what's the lowest amount of hours that you know that you will work that week? That's what you're going to put into your budget. Anything extra goes towards everything else. Maybe it's savings, maybe it's paying off debt faster, saving for something else. Maybe it's saving for those school clothes in August and school supplies, things like that. You could apply that elsewhere. But with inconsistent income, we're going with the lowest amount we could possibly bring in, because if that's all we got that month, we have to know that our bills are going to be paid. We have to know that everything that we're doing is going to get paid based off the lowest amount. So it could be a little tricky, and it could be a little eye-opening, because I think our nature is to think, what's the highest potential for my earning this week? I'm a server, I worked 20 hours this week. I can make anywhere between $20 and $600 for the week. I really want to base my budget on $600, but there's no way that we're going to know if that's going to come in. So we have to go low. We have to start with the lowest amount. And then there's proactive budgeting. Proactive budgeting is car registration. We're going to use that as our great example, and I have a couple more. How do we plan ahead for car registration? Or I like to pay my insurance premiums on a 6-month basis, but I'm saving during that time. I don't want to just pay $400 every 6 months out of pocket, because I may not have it. Especially, like I said, my insurance it's February 1st. That's when it comes out of my account. So how do we plan for this? So we're going to plan for whatever your insurance is, or your car registration, or those one-time annual fees that you're paying for various things. You're going to take that amount and divide it by how many months you have until you pay it. So for me, my registration this December, last month was, I think it was $300. So right away in January, I start saving for next December's payment. So $300 divided by 12, and that's how much I'm saving on a monthly basis. Because for me, it's a lot easier to come up with, I don't know what the math is, $26 a month, versus in December, the most expensive month of the year, coming up with $300. So I'm going to save all year round. Now, if it's, it's February tomorrow, and you're going, okay, I have to pay my registration in July, so I only have 4 or 5 months to do that, do the same thing. So $300 divided by your 5 months, that's how much you need to be saving. And then in July, kickstart that 12-month cycle there. So there's various things that we all have that are annual payments, maybe every 6 months, maybe if you think school clothes, kids sporting fees, we kind of know that they're going to happen. School pictures, super expensive. If we can time that, even starting now, how many months do we have till we have to pay it? I'm a big cash envelope person myself. So my proactive savings go straight into envelopes and I keep it in my safe. Some people are not comfortable with that at all, and that's completely fine. Write it down, open up another savings account and just put it in there. So you always know, okay, car registration's coming up, I'm just gonna pull it out of that savings account. Not many people realize you can have as many checking and savings accounts as you want. You're not limited to one each. You can open up as many as you'd like. I've talked to a lot of young people that do not realize that that's a thing, and I want to encourage you to do it, because if it's going to make you more organized and be able to save better, do it. Especially if you're constantly putting money in a savings account, like proactive savings. Usually they have a minimum $50 you have to keep in there. It's usually not going to be a problem because you're kind of always replenishing that. You're taking stuff out, you're putting more in. So here's some examples for you, because it's the best way to explain proactive budgeting. So car registration, we'll skip that one. We've talked a lot about that. So your kids' baseball dues, team dues are paid in June, and it's December now. We know that it's going to be $200, so we're going to plan to save proactively from January to June. So 200 divided by 6 months, $33 a month. We just stash it into our envelope or our savings account, and then by the time June comes along, here you go. Here's our dues. And it didn't hurt our budget because we didn't have to come up with $200. This is a good one. This is for a lot of young people here. School starts in August. You want to pay tuition in full. It's January now. We know tuition is going to be $1,140. So we have 8 months to save. That's $142.50 a month. Start stashing that away, because it's a lot easier to pay in full with cash, with the full amount like that, rather than coming up with it when it is due. This is one I really like, this idea here. So you're going to need a car soon. Maybe you've got one, you're getting to work, it's fine. You just know that you're going to have to get a new car, and you want to put some money down on it. So you want to put $2,000 down. So you're going to start proactively saving from, say, February to August. That's your goal to get it then, which is $286 a month. So we put that on our budget, and you're going to start saving for that and putting that away so you could put your $2,000 down. But really what you're doing is you're basically paying a car payment, like you're going to start absorbing in August. So you're getting used to paying your car payment. So hopefully your car payment is around that $286, and you actually have a 7-month kickstart on getting used to that coming out of your budget. But you've also put a down payment on it. So it's a nice little habit-forming kind of savings plan that helps you in the end. So I actually really like this. I encourage a lot of people to do it, because not everybody has, $20,000 to pay in cash, but at least you're getting used to it coming out of your paycheck, and then stash it in your savings account when it's ready to go. I just had a coworker do something very, very similar to this. And it really paid off for him, because he got to put a bunch of money down. He didn't get a car when he wanted to. So he pushed out his timeline, which means he had more savings, but he never stopped saving and having it come out of his paycheck. So it was really nice for him. And I have a nice little worksheet for that too. Again, it's really small, but it's saying, the total of car registration, gifts, extracurriculars. What is your total? How many more months do you have? How much do you need to save in your budget now? If we go back, I'm not going to go all the way back, but I had put on the expense form things like gifts. That's a big one. I think everyone can apply gifts to their budget. I am a big proactive saver for gifts, not only just Christmas, but birthdays. So I kind of take into account, who am I buying for next year, when are birthdays, and I typically save around $50 a month, maybe $100 on my big months, but I'm constantly taking out of it. My son's birthday is next month, so I'm just going to go to my gift envelope, take some money out. Christmas time, I was ready to go. It was really great. Last year was the first time I put gifts in my budget, and I had everything saved for Christmas. And it was amazing to go into Christmas knowing my budget for everybody. I wrote down everybody's name that I was buying for and how much I was going to spend, and I had it. But I didn't have to use my credit card. I didn't have to think, where's this money coming from? Oh my gosh, scrounging up. I just kind of put boundaries around it and said I was going to spend this much on each person, and that was it. And it was amazing. And I told a lot of my family just like the relief of having that kind of cash on hand to just pay for Christmas. It was really, really nice. But that's an envelope that I'm constantly taking out of and putting back because birthdays come along. Christmas in July. We've got a lot of great sales during the summer I am one to buy Christmas gifts in July, and I just hide them. I just do that because I'm proactively saving and I don't have it all at one time. So it gives you an opportunity to buy ahead of time and save that way. So gifts are a huge one to add. Extracurricular oil changes, car maintenance is a huge proactive savings. Oil changes every 3 months. How much? $70 every 3 months. Add that up. Tires every 2 years. You have 24 months to save for that. Put that in your car maintenance envelope or savings account and you're good to go. It's pretty amazing that I could walk out to my car and get on O Street and blow a couple tires and I've got that in my car maintenance account. Doesn't happen right away, but once you build that up, it's a big relief to know that it's there and I don't have to use my credit card to cover that. So definitely some ways there. There's some great apps out there. I'm an Every Dollar fan. That's a Dave Ramsey app. Mint is very similar. There's one called At Home or Home. There's some really great budgeting apps. They all have a paying portion to it, and I've never seen a need for it. The paying portion will dip into it connects to your checking account and will categorize things for you. But I find psychologically that's not teaching you a thing. Sometimes we have to do pen to paper, we have to practice, and then we can turn on the automatic. But we have to know what's happening with our budget. I have never used the paying feature of any app. I don't know anybody who does. So I wouldn't encourage you to do that. But I would encourage you to try different apps. Just download them, they're free. Put a couple line items in there, see if it's aesthetically pleasing. I love green and blue. That's why I love this app, because it's aesthetically pleasing to me and I don't mind opening it. Honestly, that's a huge thing for people is how does this look? It's not whether I gotta type things in, it's I don't wanna look at this. These are dumb pictures, these are dumb colors. Something like that. Just go with what you need to make it work for you. But what these apps do is you put in your budget, line item, I'm going to spend this much, this is how much I've categorized. I have everything, there's probably, 30, 40 items in mine. It carries over every month, so I don't have to repeat it. But then there's another page to it that when I spend money, I can go in there and log it. So if I budget $350 throughout the month for groceries, every time I go, I type in, I spent $98, and it'll tell me how much I have left. So it's doing the calculations for you. I don't typically type in what I'm spending anymore, but I did at the beginning. I had to get used to it, but then you just kind of formulate a plan and habits around spending your money. But it's really great because it's doing all of it for you and it carries over month by month. I can change things. So if I get a bonus or a raise, I can go in there and change everything. But the great thing is once you put it in, you just have to edit. You don't have to go through the pain and suffering of building your budget every month. So I would encourage you to just look at budgeting tools online, they're apps. You could also use them on the computer, which is nice. But I keep mine on my phone. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to budgeting. Most people are not. So I love looking at my budget at night if I can't sleep. I'm like, ooh, what do I got left for the month? It's fun for me, but it's not for others, and I get that. So they do make it easy. I think Every Dollar does a really, really good job of making it easy for you. So, all right, so that is the basics of our budgeting. There's a lot more that could be added to this. How do you budget for grocery store sales? I have that. There's just various things that go along with a budget, but we have to build a budget first in order to understand what our capabilities are of spending money without debt or getting out of debt. So I am happy to help if you are in a predicament or just have questions. Again, and every industry is so different when it comes to paychecks, how often, what we're spending our money on in the industry, things like that. So it could be a little complicated sometimes, but feel free to give me a call if you have questions. I am happy to help. That's my information. It was Jeff Aldridge's information minus the email address. So if you've got his, I get calls all the time actually from Crete for Jeff. It's me. So that's not a problem. And then we do have our client services if you get locked out of your account, need some help that way, and then our email address. We also have an app. If you are part of the 401k here, we have a retirement app. If you bank with us, awesome. It's not the same app, unfortunately. It's called UBT Retirement, different login, so you can access your account that way. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. So thanks for joining me today.